Okay, welcome everybody to the first community live show Hangout for the Whaleshares project. We'd like to welcome everybody today and let you know how this kind of graduated to the community Hangout. In the past, we used to have developer launch team based Hangouts, thankfully to Crazy Krista and PowerPix. And this week it's changed. They're handing off more to the community so that the actual code is still being worked on, still being developed, but as time goes on, the updates are less frequent. And now it's coming to a point where the community itself has to come out with their own ideas, suggestions, and learn how to work together for the success of the platform. So this week we're going to bring forward one particular suggestion, which is called centralization and decentralization. It's a hot topic because when you consider platforms of this nature, there's certain levels of different centralization and decentralization that have to be taken into account. Nothing is truly decentralized and nothing is 100% centralized. There's an interweaving of both concepts. And in some cases, full decentralization works, and in some cases you need some sort of effort for centralization as well. For instance, many of the projects as far as Bitcoin goes, you notice that there's a centralized team of developers that have approval to make Bitcoin changes. So does that make Bitcoin centralized? You could argue, well, no, in some respects it doesn't, because it takes everybody in a decentralized nature to adopt the code. So there's different levels of everything, and part of the discussion today that I'm going to bring forward, and Cerulean Blue is going to bring forward, is different aspects of that. And then we're going to move to a Q&A, and as well as commentary from the community itself, so we can hear your views on the importance of it as it relates to Whaleshares specifically. So getting started, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Cerulean Blue. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, IntelliGuy. First off, I'd like to say hello to everyone and thank you all for joining us tonight. I know I'm excited to be doing this, and I hope you all are excited to be here. As IntelliGuy said, we're going to be talking about the true meaning of decentralization or centralization and really what effects it has on our platform. IntelliGuy.
Is that you handing it back over to me?
Sorry, my button seems to not be working very well. Yes, no, I was just saying that I have, oh my God, I'm sorry. Yes, take it from here.
Okay. So one of the things, there's two major issues at the current time that seem to be focused on as far as centralization goes. One is new user onboarding. And we've seen in the past when you have a bunch of new user ways to, for instance, mine your way onto a platform, which happened with Steam, that can fail because it ends up with a whole bunch of sock puppet accounts being created for future use or to self-reward each other through a botnet network, and that can't work that way. Another thing is that if you give the power for approving accounts to one person, that person gets overwhelmed, and it also makes them the sole arbiter on whether or not an account gets approved. So moving to more of a decentralized aspect, Whaleshares moved to have the top 20 witnesses, which have earned the trust and support of the community as a result of their votes, to decide whether or not a particular user was human-based or project-based, in such a fashion that they would have to read the application and decide. You get one vote per witness, and once a cumulative value of certain number of witnesses would either approve or reject that particular application. And that kind of works in the short term. As time goes on, the immediate need to enhance or change that will become quickly apparent. Another aspect of that was abuse, is that you can't truly vet every single person that comes on the platform, so then you create a potential where there's abuse cases. Now, one of the things that have been ported over from Steam was the flag. You could flag a post to discount the rewards somebody would normally earn if their content was considered abusive, and that can result in things like plagiarism or just posts that have absolutely no value to the greater community at all, or people that were just purposely gaming the reward system. Now, flags work a little differently on Whaleshares, as you may know, so that it takes a lot more of your mana power to flag somebody. And the purpose of that is that it lowers the amount of changes you can make to the reward pool yourself as one account holder. So you couldn't use your entire mana power to go and sit there on a flagging spree and flag as easily as you could if you were to give rewards to good content. So it encourages more of a joint venture from multiple people on the platform to together use their flag power, so that there's more people involved in when somebody should be flagged, rather than just having a distaste of, well, if you gave me a flag, I'm going to flag you back. Flags are a very rudimentary way of settling disputes. There's been proposals mentioned on the platform from different people about how to gather a group together to be able to thwart some of these people as a community effort using various job roles and titles. I think one of the biggest things is that a lot of people say, well, anything that's centralized, I don't want to have a part of. I understand that aspect of it. However, if you consider yourself in real life situations, let's take a trade show, for instance. You go to a trade show, there's different vendors, different products, there's different people mingling, there's seminars, and all of these things work in such a fashion that usually you have to pay to be at one of these things, or at the very minimal, they're free to the public. But if somebody was to go in there and start shoplifting products or toppling over displays or purposely standing up and in the middle of a seminar and start blurting out obscenities nonstop because they felt that they could disrupt the whole show for all the attendees, eventually security would come in, they would escort them out. And that's the only way that these public venues can actually survive. Now you take Whaleshares, which is everybody can be at home, you can hide behind your computer screen, nobody knows what you look like, where you live. And then these type of abuse situations that don't happen in public at a trade show actually can happen in social media platforms that are decentralized like Steam or Whaleshares. There has to be a better way. Now there's two aspects that are coming up right now. I remember the day when Dan Larimer said, we need to have a way of having a unique identifier per person. So rather than proof of brain, we could have proof of individuality. Something like a reputation that follows you everywhere you go. It can still be anonymous, but in the way that you've got verified levels. And back then, when he was still part of Steam, I kind of scoffed at him initially, and I said, there's no way you can uniquely identify people this way. There's terms, mark of the beast and all that kind of stuff where you're numbering people. I said there's no way to do that, but I understand the need for wanting to do that so that people's history and their reputation follows them. Not everybody has the time or the effort to look at somebody's past postings, their past curation behavior, their past everything when they make a judgment on whether or not to reward or to de-reward, I guess, or to flag someone. So going forward, I think for the community to survive is we're going to have to come up with community accepted practices that have tools and resources to deal with it. Now, if you consider something like an army, for instance, right? And I'm using this very reluctantly, because anything that talks about any type of violence like this is not generally acceptable today. But nonetheless, if you can just picture in your mind that an army will have various tools at their disposal. They might have tanks and planes, but they will also have things like ground troops or snipers, or depending on what the situation calls for, they might use some, all, or just few of their resources. So when you're dealing with threats of some sort, you have to have a variety of tools at your disposal. Identifying which tools we currently have versus what we need to build versus what we can do with people just interacting or coming out with a group, on this project is something we're going to have to do. That's leading back to centralization, but I'll tell you, with zero centralization, the platform in general won't be able to succeed. So you have to have a weight of a little bit of some centralized force against a decentralized community that can create together. Because failing to do so is exactly what has happened to Steam, and it's exactly what's going to happen to Whaleshares, and we don't want that. That's the whole reason why we have our own blockchain, our own coders, our own people that are. We have some really good, solid people that are coming over from Steam that have decided that they want to investigate Whaleshares more and bring their talents and skills here, which is nice to see. So, this is to me as a fresh start. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. And let's see if Cerulean Blue has something to contribute to that.
Most definitely. What you were talking about there with the account signups is important, and I'd like to get back to that. But just in general with the flagging, um, putting together a group. I mean, as you were saying, to defend people on our platform or in an open space, you do need some sort of group that's tasked with protecting people. And I really don't feel that that's a form of, I mean, I guess it is a form of centralization, but I don't feel that it's the bad form of centralization because, for one thing, group members can change just like witnesses go in and out of rotation. We can put together some form of group voting, or there's always a method that we can find to make things fair, but there needs to be someone in charge of standing up for people on the platform, that's for certain, in my opinion.
And for regarding new user onboarding,
Well, I mean, the same story stands there. We can't just open it up to whoever. I mean, the person with the most stake gets to allow anyone that they want onto the platform. That doesn't really work either. It needs to be managed by more than one person for one thing, and those people need to be voted in by the community for another. So I do like the way we're doing it with witnesses for now.
right? One of the things that I also wanted to comment on is people participate in centralized efforts every day. This talk right now, all of you are here, is a centralized talk. It's a centralized place where people can meet together. When you blog, I've mentioned this before, that when you blog, you can blog decentralized in such a fashion that you blog on your computer and then you close it and don't show it to anybody. That's not helpful to everybody unless you have a centralized platform where everybody can see the post together and share together, right? A blockchain by its very nature is a centralized ledger. It's just held up in a decentralized fashion. So once we stop focusing on decentralized and centralized as stop words in a discussion, I think then you get a little bit more healthy concepts coming and forward, because I think these two words are used and abused a little too frequently. So unless you had something else to say, Cerulean Blue, I thought maybe we could take a caller soon.
I think Eroded Thoughts posed a very good, I don't know, question, suggestion there. I mean, there is most definitely a way we could track who approves and rejects accounts, but that isn't implemented just yet.
That it becomes difficult. I would like to see the power come from certain respected members of the community involved as well, instead of just witnesses, for instance. Um, Maybe at some point it goes through an initial vetting process through witnesses where they're just not sure, or the application comes pre-approved. Somebody gives them a referral link, and that referral link can be like, oh, well, that's easy to spot. This person was referred by this person. And maybe a history of tracking where you'd be like, okay, this person, 90% of the people they've sent turned out to be decent, versus this person, only 24% of the people that they've referred have actually panned out. Something to that degree, that way there's an inherent responsibility based on how they actually heard the platform or got referred to it. That might work. That's just one example, but there could be more.
That is a very interesting prospect to me, but if anyone else has anything to input there, I'd like to hear it.
Do we have anybody from the audience that would like to comment, voice or text? I guess we should be paying attention to the text chat as well.
So as PowerPix mentioned, whoever is in charge of the server is actually able to see who is putting people in and denying people's applications, but that isn't public for everyone yet.
That's really good. Another thing that I'd like to comment on is this seems to be a growing, I want to say, disease or phenomenon where when you have any particular subject, you get a high volume of people telling you what they don't want. This is no good for that. I don't want that because of this. That won't work because of that. And it's frustrating when you can't get any constructive things like saying, okay, listen, that won't work because of that, but this might work. Or here's a solution you could check into. I think that as we get more positive, constructive solutions, then it becomes easier. So with every negative thing of that won't work kind of idea, if there's something that you could bring along with it that could work, that's very helpful.
Definitely agreed with you there. The solution you mentioned using referral links, that's interesting, and that is something that could be handled just like we all have our own mana that recharges daily. Maybe everyone could get a set amount of invite links or based on stake, whatever you wanted to say. I don't know. Everyone has their own opinion there, but there's definitely something doable.
Well, one of the benefits is the blockchain allows you to use your memo key to sign something. So you could go through a key, an invite link generator, sign that with your key, and then once it's signed with your key, it can be traced back to you as to where that person came from. Um, and who knows? Maybe there could be other things too. Is that you maybe if you flag somebody that you've already led onto the platform, your flag counts like 400% more because, first of all, that person is linked to you in some way. And if you're self-curating and flagging your own person that you voted, that says a lot for something.
Yes, most definitely agreed with you there. I don't know how to answer that for you, Rhoda. Does anyone have the answer to that? How many WLS sign-up tokens are in existence right now? So only 100 plus, that's not bad at all. I wonder if we could use, no, that's not enough. I mean, we'd have to come up with some sort of limitation on how many invites we want to be able to give out per, yes, Krista, come.
I just wanted to touch base on the sign up WLS really quick because people message me about it all the time. Um, that was only meant to be a temporary solution to a problem we were having. So they're being used very selectively right now. So if there's a problem where you can absolutely not sign up using your BitShares memo key, you're having all sorts of issues, you've tried and tried and tried, then I would use them. Otherwise, I mean, there's really not a need for it. The sign up system works pretty well for 95% of the people that try to sign up with it.
That is all good news, and it is good to have a backup. Um, I noticed, I'm not sure what day this argument was, but the last time on the platform we were all discussing the sign up. Someone was comparing it to Steam. Does anyone know the process that they use?
Well, initially they were taking Facebook and Reddit. If you had an account on either one and you could prove it, then you could get an account initially if you didn't get it mined. And then it's transitioned past that. I don't know what the newest. Then they went to email only, I think, for a bit there. Um, and the way it is today is, I saw somebody saying they've closed signups or something temporarily.
Well, I mean, months ago I sent my cousin the sign up link so she could try and get an account on there, and nothing ever happened from it. We never even heard back, so I'm not surprised about that. But I brought that up because I heard, or I saw some users saying that perhaps our method was a bit centralized, but I don't think we're doing anything different. I'd assume from there, even with the email sign up, it still goes through to some sort of live person checking it.
One thing that I caught my eye is last night I kept thinking about the call today and how I was going to talk about the need for being able to identify people and beyond just based on an alias name or blogs or something like that or their past history. After I was done all of that, I noticed this article on CoinDesk which talked about that the creator of the ERC20 mechanism is coming out with ERC753, which is a need for being able to identify different people of some way. And as soon as you hear about identifying people, it shuts you down right away. You're like, I don't want to be identified. I like my anonymity. Fine, but that's Dan Larimer first that addressed that concept. Here's this guy from Ether addressing that concept. I'm coming out with this idea that that truly that's the only way to really police. I hate these words. The only true way to ensure that there's a positive way for communities to interact without disruptors controlling the communication or downvaluing the effort and the token, because there's nothing worse than, and I still don't get it to this day. I written a post recently which earned 1,200 WLS. Now I think I could easily run some fake accounts and upvote myself, not or reward myself and share through about 15 different accounts, and I might make from nothing. I might be able to make a good 50 WLS, maybe 100. But it's so much better and easier and faster to just contribute something legitimate to the community that they appreciate. I don't understand the mentality of these people, but as long as you can't teach people or educate them or work with them one-on-one to a point that they're like, okay, I see it now. They're still going to use whatever tactic they have up their sleeve. So we're going to have to come up with a way of identifying problem areas and then having the tools necessary to combat them. And that's going to begin and end with community involvement. That's what this whole talk is. It's easy to come to a couple of people on stage, Cerulean Blues and Teleguy's community chat, listen to us up here like an audience member, eat popcorn while you do it, and go, well, as long as somebody's talking about it and they're concerned about it, I guess eventually something's going to get done about it. It's not going to get done about it unless the community steps up, brushes off their mic or their keyboard, and actually has something meaningful to contribute. Solutions that other people will be like, hey, I propose this, and 15 other people go, that's actually a dynamite idea. Then there's coders that will be like, good, dynamite ideas is what I change into code, right? I can totally code that. So, engagement and talking and sharing is the root of this platform. I'd like to see that's kind of what the community shows are going to be for.
I'm fully agreed with you, Intelliguy. I'd like to open up the floor to some community members soon, but I also wanted to add in there, it doesn't have to be an amazing idea. Any idea usually bounces off someone else pretty well, so sometimes it's just soundboarding that helps, you know what I mean? I mean, if you've got an amazing idea, that's better, but
Okay, the floor is open if anybody has anything to say or wants to come in. I apologize, our first show is not going to be as fluid as you may expect, but we're going to get there.
Deranged has some stuff that he's typing to you guys if one of you wants to read it out.
yes, I am just reading through that now. I liked the first thing, the second thing you said, or the latest thing you said, Deranged. I mean, taking away things from people in general, that's very policey. We have to tread lightly on those borders. But I have been wanting a way to stop these stupid bots from auto voting my accounts and earning curation from it. That definitely is an issue.
See, the concept deranged is that what you just said. I just pinpointed two things that need to be addressed when you said if we find an account and if we disable their upvote. I guess you're meaning the community at large, but that becomes a dicey thing as how does the community at large find an account together and how do they disable the upvote together?
So we already have iGMI, I think that's how you say it. with the plagiarism stuff that's going on. Oh, Jamie, sorry. But so she's already doing that, and I talked to Steam Cleaners yesterday on Steemit about implementing that sort of a system here on Whaleshares, and it is too expensive to bring the exact same thing over here. And their suggestion would be to identify the accounts that would be blacklisted on or from Steam Cleaners. We would implement a global blacklist like what Steam Cleaners does. But instead of flagging, we have a way of writing in the code to disable their ability to get upvotes. And then the one thing we do with Steam Cleaners is the people, once they're identified and flagged by Cheetah, they have to make an apology post, and they have to post for 7 days. They have to post original content for 7 days. And if they're able to do that, then they're reevaluated after the 7 days, and then the flags are lifted and they're taken off the blacklist. So if they can prove to the community here that they can not scam, plagiarize, all of that, then yeah, it's basically a timeout, to where they're not stealing from the reward pool, they're not plagiarizing people's content, stuff like that. Then they can get the ability to earn again. But that would be something through that would have to be implemented in code to where we can disable their ability to get upvotes.
If I could jump in here real quick and just mention that the plagiarism and all that type of stuff was really big on Steam. And I think it was surpassing Google created this ULog thing, and the community that was involved there in that plagiarism went more to original content.
Well, and one of the things here is you've got projects like Pixel, and the Pixel tag is one of the largest tags, and so a lot of the abuse is coming with photography, stuff like that, mainly macro insect photography right now. That's what a lot of the stuff that we're seeing. And so like if we can figure out a way to like put them on timeout, we would need something from one of the top accounts giving them like a daily thing that they could post and earn, sort of like ULogs here. But that would have to be like a community type initiative that they could use as an alternative.
Yes, I would definitely see that being managed by the community, but I could also see that being done. I think that would solve a lot of issues, obviously not all of them, but what do you guys think?
Well, one of the concerns I have about blacklists is the Marky Mark runs a blacklist over on Steam, and when you go to his GitHub to look at the blacklist, it's like a mile and a half long. It just keeps going on and on and on. And it's hard to believe that every single person on the blacklist is a unique scammer or spammer. They see, oh, my account's been flagged. Okay, I'll start another account and do the same thing. I'll start another account and do the same thing. And so they're running fast away from the blacklist, just faster than the blacklist can blacklist them. And then it becomes a game of, cat and mouse, and that's frustrating. There's something to be said about things like, for instance, probationary periods. See, now we're getting into the rules, but I mean, there's merits in some of these things. Probationary period is you got to exist on the platform, have a certain amount of engagement over a certain amount of time before finally your account becomes, you can unlock it. Or You have to build up a reputation where a certain number of people that have already earned their reputation can remove you from that. And it doesn't have to always come from witnesses, or it doesn't have to always come from certain community members. It could be the community in general. If you pass your probationary period, which is a lot of people don't want to spend that much time on something, but if they did, I mean, then the rewards become there, and that keeps all the rewards for all the people that have already passed their probationary period, not have to play games with somebody else. There's that aspect as well. Another thing I came up with in my with an idea was a cash over short. Like, if any of you worked in retail, the cash register is never on target. It's off by a few cents or a few dollars or something like that. Where a certain group or the code itself, or there's some way of cash overing short somebody's account, when you'd be like, huh? And what you basically do is you lock up some of their stake, that it can't be transferred and it can't be powered down, um, pending a 30-day cooldown period or something to that degree. And if once they pass that 30-day cooldown period, it comes reactive again until such time that they do something, and then it locks it again. Because of the way vesting happens over a series of weeks, they'd be encouraged not to hit that 30-day cooldown period. So, I mean, the end goal of what we need to do, what kind of interesting, unique ways we can do to a bad actor is there. It all becomes down to who triggers it, and how easily is it gamed or abused, the trigger itself. So I mean, there's very interesting, fun ways of dealing with this kind of stuff that could have a real lasting result, and these problems we're worried about today and seeing every day would be gone tomorrow or gone next year, and we'd be the first social media decentralized blockchain that could do it. But it's all about how do we start to employ these things and how do we talk about it. So I look forward to the after party and more calls now.
Using the Marky Mark, sorry, Build a Whale as a failed account of a blacklist is a bad idea, because when they do a blacklist, they don't provide any sort of support for that. I only know that because Marky has me as like a Marky Mark fan club member in his Build a Whale, and I get messages all the time from people. How do I get off the blacklist? Now, they wouldn't have been messaging me because I'm not associated. I don't work with Build a Whale at all. But I get messages from people all the time because I'm a different color in there, right? So they're not offering the support that Deranged was talking about, like you have to post, you have to apologize, you have to show that you can make good quality content. So I like the idea of a blacklist utilized in a different way than what just you're on this blacklist now and fuck you, because that's basically what it comes down to with that.
I'm definitely in agreement about the Marky Mark style blacklist. Those are cheap. They get some form of job done, but not a good one in any manner. Um, I think IntelliGuy brought up a very good point, though. We really need to be deciding what constitutes a bad actor before we really decide how to punish them. JG Lake, in response to your reputation system, I've tried to think of, I think, at least 3 different ones for different situations on this platform, and each time I come up with that idea, it can be gamed in a way unless you do a fair one-to-one vote, and that doesn't really fly on these types of platforms.
One thing to note that is if you start building an army for flagging, somebody somewhere is going to start building their army too, and it just ends bad for everybody.
Most definitely, that will just cause a war on both sides. I saw something written by PowerPix recently. It was talking about Official Fuzzy's original plans for this platform, and that he believes that a user's stake is to use as their own. And I think that largely, I mean, we're all going around here talking about bad actors. I'd like to actually hear some of the bad actions that we're discussing.
Well, one of the things that comes back to is if you have a block, this goes to more of a psychological thing, but it's kind of holds some merit. If you, in the grand scheme of things, right, we have one internet. And it doesn't matter if you are a spammer or if you're a blogger or if you're a vlogger or you're a journalist or you're selling games or you're doing whatever you are, you can use the internet, right? The internet has a value attached to it that is unknown to everybody else. You don't, if you have access to the internet, you either pay a monthly fee for it or you go to the favorite coffee shop and they win for you using the internet. And the idea of the internet is that you can find what you want and you can ignore or hide what you don't want for the most part. And a blockchain like Whaleshares could be kind of the same idea. If you have a bunch of people like me that like people like me and want to follow people like me, I could go into the IntelliGuy group of some sort that I set up, and then there be a bunch of copies of me in there that we all talk about the same sort of thing, and we're all happy because that's all we're doing. Um, and at the same time, if you have the scammer group, they can go ahead and create their own scammer group and talk about the latest way of cheating people, and I guess that would hold some value too. And as long as there is a mechanism there where one group was becoming more valuable on people that are holding more whale stake than another group. I mean, that's where Steam kind of was going with its smart media tokens. Segregation of group, being able to successfully mute people. If you have trolls on your blog that you don't want to see, you should be able to mute them. If you want to have an invite only group or certain people only on your feed, you should be able to cater your style to that. It works on the same concept as Whaleshares can be the chain for everybody in a social atmosphere. And if you simply want to go back to the days of Facebook where you only see your friends and your friends' posts, maybe there will be a mechanism for that. And I think there's something that's been brewing on that from the community mindset. I haven't seen it yet, and neither have you, but there's some talk about that's where the level of graduation was going to go to at some point. Is filtering your own view on the chain enough? The only trouble we have is the reward pool. Everybody keeps bringing it back to the reward pool. And if one group is trying to contribute, but they need the tokens to do so, and they're failing because they're becoming worthless by the scammers who are obtaining them and selling down the value of the token on the exchange because, hey, these tokens are given to me for free and I didn't have to do much to get them. They sell at any price. They'll sell at 0.02 BTS if as long as somebody's buying it for 0.02 BTS. They don't care. And then if it means they got to scam more, then they just scam more to sell more. Those are the ones that we really got to focus on. So there's always going to have to be a mechanism for handling people that are like just blatantly cheating the system, unfortunately. Now, Fuzzy has a different way of saying that. I'd like for him to come on one of these shows or listen to this archive and explain how he can have a system where there is no, it's a free-for-all and the good will emerge because the good are prevented from emerging as long as you have the bad holding them down, is my aspect.
Well, this is just a personal idea that I've been playing with, and I think I may have posed it to you and IntelliGuy, but the idea of multiple reward pools, it's an interesting solution in that regard for me.
Ooh, multiple reward pools. Well, that's kind of like smart media tokens, but a different way of saying the same thing.
Huh. That's interesting. I haven't done a lot of research into SMTs. I saw the whack of a process they put into it, and I just closed the screen right there. Yeah, as I said, it's definitely not a solution, but it is an interesting idea I've been playing with, and I wouldn't want the idea of the reward pool to stop anyone from playing with the idea. You know what I mean?
Well, there's some aspects, again, I've seen and heard of these technologies, like, here's where I do the cough share bits. But where, like imagine this, if I went to your post and I loved it to death, not only did I give you a reward from reward pool, but I also gave you an Intella token with it, right? Then I'd be like, here you go, right? Like that was such a dynamite post. I want you to have this extra little thing. That's kind of what whale tokens were for. If you read the white paper, which I did again, it doesn't matter how many times I read the white paper, I find something new in it every time, or the whale paper rather. Whale paper mentioned that whale tokens were used for vetted community members that would run certain projects become official whale tokens based on the community that they were intended to support. For instance, you would have a photography whale token maybe, or a music whale token, or different whale tokens that serve certain communities or projects that they supported, right? That concept holds true. So, with the adoption of winning whale tokens or having a whale token maintainer distribute tokens to your particular project, it kind of gives the idea that your project, if it was valid and got free whale tokens, could reward itself enough from the reward pool that it would have a huge amount of WLS as a result of its reward that it earned, versus somebody that had no project who was just scamming the system and couldn't get the same amount without buying it. So the good people would outpace themselves based on the whale tokens themselves. The problem, as we heard before, is that when somebody was just taking whale tokens for the sole purpose of self-promoting themselves, that's where they had to be restricted on the market at that point, because that's not what the goal of the whale tokens were for. But that's kind of, I think, I think what we have here is multiple pieces of the puzzle that can work. It's just that the puzzle isn't put together yet in its full form. So we can see that until it is completed as a full picture, we're kind of, everything's kind of clunky right now. With the new things that are coming out in the new year, with the new things that cough cough share bits, the new things about what you're proposing, I think that we have to keep working on these issues and fine tuning them, and then just keep at the engagement. The people in this room are terrific. I'm starting to recognize so many names that are here multiple times a week for the different shows. There's I wrote that in my last post. I'm like, in the blockchain, who do you trust? Who do you value? Who do you look up to? That is important, and that's what I kind of look for in people every day. I don't necessarily just come here for rewards. There's easier way for me to make rewards than to spend countless time in Discord unpaid. But I do that because when I give a value, I receive value back, and this is where I want to be. And I apologize for my little tangents, by the way, people. You know me by now. I go off on them. I apologize.
We love your tangents, Intellica. I'm most definitely in agreement with you there. I love this platform too, and I want to do anything I can to keep it going in a direction that is good for everyone. You said something there I really liked about. Give me a second. I will touch back on that.
Let's echo what Crazy Chris is saying. People are a store of value, and that is true. That is true. We use tokens as and blockchains as a measurement of something, but truly at the end of the day, it's people that we value, people that we need to engage with, and people that we need to share and learn from. And it's people that we're trying to find in the dark here. Everybody keeps saying, it's code is law and code does everything. Code is only here to support people finding people and people rewarding people and people collaborating with and finding other people to collaborate with. Steam Monsters is a crappy product if nobody uses it, right? The only reason Steam Monsters is popular is just that you can, engage with other people and play together with them, and you can showcase your rewards as compared to what other people might have. So, it's people that make up the systems, not tokens and everything else. So, as long as we keep that mental focus of what Whaleshares can bring, I think we're all going to do well.
What you were saying about only having a portion of the plan right now, I think that's very true. We're in very early stages and we're seeing some slightly freaky things that we've all seen where they lead on other platforms, and that's scary to us. But a lot of these users, if they were joining our platform in the state that Steam is in right now, they wouldn't be making 2 tokens a day, you know what I mean? This is just early days.
So you mentioned, Sir Liam Blue, that you've been working on different reporting tools and things like that that can give you a glimpse at the blockchain. So you can confirm that any behavior that has been existed today and back, there's an algorithm, there's an app for that. There's an algorithm for that to be able to pull up any type of data that you want based on any criteria you specify. Is just a matter of either changing some numbers in a script or writing a similar script to go do that job, right?
Well, most definitely, depending on what you're looking for. What you were talking about earlier, actually giving users, say, an online passport that they can take with them from platform to platform, that would be great. But as you said, it's pretty damn impossible. I've seen Scipio do some interesting stuff with data analysis, and I'm not sure how much I trust that or where he's doing it. I know the FBI has some good sources for that, but those are all very hard sources to work with. But as for just scanning our blockchain for activity that was done within our platform, that's all very simple, yes. Or if the user was stupid enough to use the same username as the last platform, like many people seem to be here.
PowerPix makes a very valid comment. Whaleshares is about 4 months old, but people relate or compare it against a platform that's over 2 years old and failing. We need ways to go and grow. So, how we all work together on this particular platform is the key. And that's kind of what the Tuesday community shows are going to be for. Now, you're going to notice that we're not, for instance, we're entering Christmas. I should make this notice now. We're entering Christmas. This is the last Tuesday where there's going to be a live show before Christmas. Next Tuesday, we're just going to have an after party for whoever happens to be hanging around. There will be no show that particular Tuesday. But just look for the blog posts on either IntelliGuy or Sir Liam Blue when there is going to be another community event. Each time we're going to try and choose a different topic to discuss. I think that together we came out with like a list of 10 or 15 items that we want to propose to the community. And it's helpful for you to look at the posts ahead of time, and if you have a submission to make, you could either reply it as a comment and that particular show announcement post, and we can address that. That'll be an easy way of getting your feedback into something. Or link us to a post that you've written and saying, I hope you discuss this on the show. That way we have a little bit more of a formula for being able to address things from the community rather than waiting for people to be here live, talk live, because that's not always going to work in our busy schedules, I guess.
I'd definitely like to see that happening. That is how you get some good discussion going. I'd also, let's see, I've heard Crazy Krista, I've heard IntelliGuy, I've heard me talk terribly. Does anyone else have anything to say on voice? I'll take that as a no. Well, I think that is all I had to say. IntelliGuy, is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up the show?
I'd just like to thank everyone for their patience on, I think I wrote a post not too long ago that says, Whaleshares is new, be patient. People are aware of issues, they're going to work through them. Don't, try your best to, do what you think is right for yourself as much as what's right for the platform. Don't lose the willingness to see a better thing evolve. It's easy to get scorn or, think negatively about certain situations, going, you know what? I had a disagreement with this guy, so anything that he comes out with now, I'm not going to listen to him anymore. As soon as you block that, you're going to lose that type of goodness that can actually come from people. The way people are versus the way that people want to be or can be is going to change. So I think if we're a little bit more patient with each other as a community, we're going to go a lot further. I want to thank, for instance, PowerPix especially for his graphic imaging that he did for us. I I didn't know that he would do that, and he volunteered to do so. He's recording the show today, which is terrific. And if anybody else wants to contribute anything to this particular program, as far as ideas, suggestions, or anything, you can contact Sir Liam Blue or myself on Discord. Let us know how you felt about listening to this archive, or anything that you think that we should be doing more of or less of in the future. Um, I think we're both very interested in what you have to say. And I guess with that, um, go ahead, Sir Liam Blue, and sign us off by saying your final words.
Definitely. I'd also like to thank Crazy Krista and PowerPix for everything they've done to get us here. One last thing I would like to touch on, because I've seen this discussion going back and forth between Woodsy and JG Leg. I have to agree with Woodsy. It's not a foolproof way of handling applications. I mean, we don't want someone to have to be somewhere else for them to come here. That's silly.
Okay, that concludes the show. Go ahead, PowerPix, and we'll move to the after party. We'll see you not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday.